Hello, and welcome to this episode 5 of the Balanced Mind podcast with myself, Kim Searl, and Richard Brewin. Welcome, Richard. How are you?
I'm fine, Kim. Thank you.
Excellent. So, today we're talking about managing people, and it's a hot topic. For a number of different reasons, because not least one of the challenges that we've been seeing over the last 6 to 9 months are the challenges within the NHS and how the doctors are really unhappy with their long working hours. 80 plus hours a week or something, is it? It's just crazy, isn't it, Richard? And the trouble is, what bothers me about this more than anything is that's been going on for years, decades even. It's how all doctors have been measured in their success rates and how they've been able to progress to become consultants. And of course, consultants have earned that role and believe that everybody has to go through it. And herein lies the rub, is we're bringing in a new generation, and they're not just new because of age. They've got new insights, new attitudes, new ways of being, that it just doesn't fit with them anymore, does it? And of course, they don't want to be working those extensive hours. I mean, I'm just using them as an example of how the way we learnt to manage, or didn't, as the case may be, will be based on the way we were managed or taught to manage. And of course, it's not opening up to the people that you're managing, who are the crux of what's going on here. What's your thoughts, Richard, on that?
Yeah, I think, you know, when you're running an accounting business or a bookkeeping business today, then um, there are two groups of people that we need to manage and recognize need to manage. One being our team and the other being our clients. And I know that, talking to leaders in those businesses, they have this, I guess I'll call it frustration, where if our team, if I could manage our team more effectively, if I could manage our clients more effectively, then the business would be better, my life would be easier, and to a great extent, I guess it would. But it's there's a deeper issue here because we have a recruitment challenge in the profession,
Yes, that's
and
right.
we've certainly gone through a period which I think is starting to ease a little bit, but we went through a period of quite a few years where younger people come into the profession. I remember, when I started way back, I wanted to be a partner. I looked at what the partners were doing, spending their time talking to clients, and I thought I wasn't that enamored with the day job. Ticking up bank statements is not the best job in the world,
I've
but
been there.
but, but I wanted to get qualified because I wanted to be a partner. Um, Today, when you talk to young ones coming through, and certainly over the last probably 10 years or so, people have gone, they've looked at the those at the top of the businesses, they looked at the directors, the partners, and they've looked at the pressure they're under, and they've gone, why would I want to do that? And it's fundamentally because I don't think that the partners today are under any more or less pressure than they were 40 years ago. But I think people coming into the profession are different. They have different, we're
Yeah.
talking different generations. They have different expectations, different goals. They have different views on lifestyle, and that's not wrong. They've grown up in a very different world to what we grow up in. So I think there's this. We need, there is a need um, to get that we can't just go, right, like you were saying there with the doctors. We can't go, well, look, this is how I was trained, so therefore that's the way you're going to be trained. This is how I worked, therefore that's the way you're going to work. Because we're in a different world with different people, we need to be smarter than that. We're going to get the best out of our teams. We've got to engage them and we've got to infuse them. And we don't do that by saying, just follow the path I follow.
Mm. It reminds me of a conversation I had probably about 18 months ago, and I have no idea who it was with, because I have lots of conversations. But what they were saying was the profession wanted more diversity within it. And one of the troubles, or one of the difficulties with that, is they bring them in and then they would pretty much train them into uniformity because that's how you do accounts. And I can see the conundrum there, but what it would also do is almost breed out that diversity, because they were now all being trained to think alike. And if you're all thinking alike and doing alike, you're losing something in that process, aren't you? And I think maybe that's part of the challenge is, are we I mean, don't get me wrong. I know you need the mechanics of accountancy, but I'm guessing there's a whole raft of stuff around that within the culture, maybe of where you're learning, or the profession as a whole. Are we still seeing things too rigidly, perhaps, in an old way, rather than embracing the new? I don't know. That's my
I
thoughts on it.
I think there's an element of that without a doubt. I mean, I know, just as a parent, that my kids want, um, they're looking for different things from work.
They are.
And it's you can't judge that based on the rules that we had when we worked. Yeah, if you take one thing I often talk to accountants about is this concept of that they'll complain about a member of staff because they'll say, oh, they're always first out the door at 5 o'clock and they only get here at 9 o'clock and what have you. And I get in the past, with me as an employer in the past, that was an issue. But I look now and think, I'll say to them, but what does their contract say? And they'll go, well, it's 9 to 5. I said, well, if you want them to work beyond that, isn't it only fair that you pay them beyond that? Change the contract then. Yeah, I'm not saying that people should have like a work to rule, but this is certainly the case with, when you talk about junior doctors, they work insane hours. I don't want to be operated on by a doctor who's been working 80, 90, 100 hours. Thanks very much. That doesn't work for me. But it's this like, well, but it's almost like it's a badge of honor. You've got something to prove.
I think
And
you're
and
right.
I think 20, 30, 40 years ago, we bought into that. Even, now I look at it and think, yeah, that's nonsense, isn't it? If the job requires 80 hours, either get more doctors or pay me more. It's that. Yeah, and actually, I think most junior doctors will go, pay me more, isn't it really the issue? Because I don't want to work 80 hours. It's just stupid. And it's the same, with our teams. Is it right? So many firms say, oh, we don't pay overtime. Okay, I get that in the past. Is that right now? First, and I think most of the younger generations will go, it's not about the money. I don't want to be working overtime. I've got other things to do. It's that work-life balance that, when I started working, work-life balance wasn't even a phrase.
No,
You know,
no, it
not,
wasn't me
and
either.
you knew what you had to do to progress in your firm and to progress in your career. A lot of youngsters these days, they don't think in terms of a career. They don't have this idea that, well, I want to go through the stages and I want to become a partner. They go, okay, let's see where I am in 5 years' time. Let's see where I am in 10 years' time. That's not them being right or wrong. It's only seen as that if we judge them by our standards. That's them going, look, this is the world I live in now. I can see the world on my phone every single day. I can see other people's lives on my phone every single day.
Yeah.
They have a different perception of what's going on around them, which is a good and a bad thing. I mean, the stresses that puts them under as well is tough. But I just
Just
feel that we
different.
don't.
It's just different, isn't it?
Yes, it is, and that's the simple thing, isn't it? It's different, and therefore we need to recognise it's different and approach it in a different way. What is it? Our team aren't necessarily these days um, engaged by pay rises and promotion opportunities. They're looking for different things, and there is, I see some amazing young people coming in. I've always enjoyed, getting young people in the profession anyway. It's great to give people opportunities, but I'm not sure we actually give them the opportunities that we should. Do we give them the opportunity to be as creative, as free thinking, as dynamic as they can be if we just work them in, let them work in a slightly different framework?
So what would be your recommendation then, do you think, in managing? So when I talked diversity earlier, but this diverse team of age groups who have different needs almost because of the way that they've I'm just trying to think of a nicer word than the one going through my head, that they've been sort of, used to and conditioned with. What would you be your recommendations then? Because you're right, it's horses and courses. I used to be a manager of 16 people, which is not many, I guess, for some, but for me, that was probably a sizable team that I was directly responsible for. I did manage teams that I wasn't, but for directly responsible for. And boy, was there an age gap in some of that. I had my eldest at that time was in her mid to late 50s, and the youngest was probably 18 or 19, and their needs were very different even then. And I can't honestly say I did a complete sterling job. So what would be your recommendations for managing a team like that? Where would you start?
Well, my kids always roll their eyes at me when they're talking to me about frustrations at work and all the rest of it, and I'll say to them, "Well, you know what I'm going to say. The solution is to talk, to go and have a conversation." And they go, "That's what you always say," and I go, "That's because it's always the solution." Yeah, I think if we are fundamentally, we're talking here about a, a misunderstanding, not knowing both ways, the team member not knowing the picture from the firm's point of view, and the bosses not knowing the picture from the team member's point of view. And the only way that you do learn that is by conversation. And I think this to have a first of all, to have a structure in place that guarantees that these conversations are happening. So you're having the regular line manager chats and reviews and what have you, development plans. You put all that in place, because otherwise they just don't happen, and so don't happen regularly enough. But it's you fix things by talking, don't you? And getting a better understanding of each other, and taking the positives and building from that. That's how you can't engage with somebody who you don't understand.
I agree with that. One I do a masterclass on difficult conversations because I've held a few in my time, and one of the phrases seek to understand before I think I call it seek to understand before being understood, something along those lines. I had it in my head and it disappeared, but that's the essence of it. So when you're with somebody in your team, I guess the idea, and I did learn this as part of the Institute of Leadership and Management diploma I did, was that you listen, and you listen actively and deeply to what they're saying and what they're not saying. What's the facts versus the emotional content. And, you're giving them feedback that you are listening. So repeating some of what they say, maybe the end of the sentence, so they know that you have been hearing what they've said. And just acknowledging them with a nod, or a question maybe. But the idea is to be active listening and just gain a really good insight into what's going on for them, and asking those how and what questions that I love so much, because there's no judgment with those, and it allows them to open up and explore even more what's going on. And I think once you do that, you're right, you find out more about them in that conversation than you would just doing the autocratic style of management, which by the way is still around, it turns out.
Mm.
It's you'll find out so much more, and you can get more from them, because they are all motivated by different things, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, you look at Gen Z, they want responsibility. They want the opportunity to express opinion. They want to learn. They want pretty much immediate feedback, because that's how they learn and progress. Um, we need to recognize that and embrace it. Yeah, I think that I've, I've I've always believed that your best members of a team quite often are the hardest to manage, because they've got a brain and they've got an opinion, and they're
Mm.
not as shy from expressing it. And you have to, with okay, sometimes if they overstep mark, then you have to sort of remind of that. But you'll all be shocked to learn that I'm not someone who can keep my mouth shut. And right from day one in my career, I've always believed if I, in going and knocking on the partner's door and saying, "Can I have a word?" And I can probably apologise formally to all the bosses over the years that I've had. But if as long as it's done properly, that's how. Apart from anything else, 9 times out of 10, that's how I learn I'm wrong, and or get a better understanding. But I think if you don't, I've always felt it's important to have that accessibility. Otherwise, I very quickly get frustrated and feel isolated. And that's
Mm.
not a great feeling for any of your team.
No, of
And I
course.
think Gen Z, that's how they are. That's we. It's no good using the word team and talking about engagement and talking about people stepping up if you don't actually create an environment and an opportunity for all that to develop and grow.
Mm.
And let's face it, when we set up our own firms and run our own firms, there's an element of us that is control freak. That's why we do it. We don't like working for other people.
I've
So
always thought of
therefore,
myself as a bit of a maverick, if I'm honest.
so when a team member comes to you and says, "I think you're wrong," we don't like that. But hey, that you want people who have that degree of intelligence, as long as they don't come in and pin you up against the wall and think, start jabbing you in the face. Then I think, we want people who are going to challenge us. We want people who are going to hold us to account. We want that sort of environment within our team. It can't just be one way. It can't just be us challenging the team and holding the team to account. I
Well,
think
that's
with
nonsense,
clients, we
isn't
almost
it?
see completely the opposite. With clients, we allow them to challenge us and hold us to account, but we do nothing in return. We don't challenge them and we don't hold them to account. It's like any relationship, because that's what it is. With our team members, with our clients, it is a relationship.
Yeah,
And like any relationship, the most effective ones are the ones that are balanced and equal and open and honest.
yeah.
And how many times do we have these conversations, you and I, and those words come up about being open and honest? And I
Mhm.
think it's definitely the case here. If we're going to manage someone effectively, then we need to understand them and we need to have an open, honest relationship with them. If you look at take football managers, the best football managers are able to take a squad of 25 players, and they don't treat them all as one. They understand how to get the best out of each individual so that the team as a whole functions effectively.
Yeah,
And some need an arm around the shoulder, some need to be pinned up against the wall and shouted at, some need to be shown on the whiteboard. It's different, isn't it? And we have to learn those skills in order for the team to be most effective.
I remember years ago, again, obviously because of experiences, it was years ago. I worked in an environment and I was seconded to the sales team. And it was a high pressured sales team. We were in the mobile industry at the time and it was in a growth period. And they were giving a rundown of what they had. And I was horrified that they had the people who were at the top performers, and then the ones who were not doing well. And I can't remember the titles they gave them, but it was derogatory. I mean, it would be shocking now. And they actually hauled those people over the coals in front of a room of at least 25 people. I was so shocked. How is that motivating for a salesperson who, yes, may be underperforming, but to do it publicly? Really? And I think from that day on, I learned a really valuable lesson is that when people are underperforming, it's about dealing with them individually and discreetly because they don't need everybody else to be judging them. They're probably judging themselves unless they are just looking to get out of the business some way. I don't know. There may be a very valid reason, but there will be a small percentage. Most people don't come to work to do a crap job. There's something going on, isn't
Not
there?
quite. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
it's finding out what that is. But I just knew I was in the wrong environment. Got out of that sales environment very quickly. I can tell you. Who wants
I, I
that?
think I think that I mean a phrase you will very commonly hear is my door is always open. Now in the last episode, in episode 4, we talked about the time pressure that people are under. So your door might be open, but is your mind open? When how many times have you had that where you've knocked on the door and you've popped in and the door's open, but they're not listening, or they want it to be a really short conversation because they're deep in the middle of something, and your mind, that's not, the door is quite is literally open, but there's not an open relationship there, and it's much better to say, okay, look, let's put some time in the diary, then let's have a proper conversation about this, or literally to close your laptop down or whatever, and say, okay, right, you've got my undivided attention, let's have a conversation. we have to we've got to proactively work at these things, and I think giving, it does actually link back to this time conversation, because we are giving time to people here, and if we don't constructively do that, we're wasting time because we're not listening to them, they're not being properly heard, and we probably make things worse rather than better. So
Mm,
we have to be prepared to invest time in our team, and our clients and in the relationships to save that time in the long term.
yeah.
Because if we properly listen to them and properly explain to them so that they properly listen to us, that takes time, but it saves huge amounts of time down the line. Yeah, and so it's recognizing the importance of those conversations with our team members, with our colleagues, with our clients, and making sure that we do dedicate ourselves to those conversations. So so it always comes back to that communication again.
It's interesting because I'm just going through in my mind, you're talking about it's a fixed mindset. They've got stuck, haven't they? And they've not been or may not be open to new ideas. And that can be a challenging place to be because that's an old habit that the brain has learned to keep yourself safe. Oh, we know this, so we're good. So uh taking the tunnel under the Thames. You've got no other ways you can go. You can't see that there might be a bridge over the top or that you can get a boat across. And they're doing different things, maybe timescales, because you could get caught in traffic under the tunnel, couldn't you? But it's they got caught there and they can't see the other options. And in fact, one of the ways that I learned it was called a reality tunnel. This is the way things are. And actually, my thoughts are that the individual, if that's where they think they are and they're not open to listening to people coming together with suggestions from their team, then they've got some serious self-awareness to look at. What is that all about? How is that helping them? So I think they've got to look at themselves first, again, seek to understand and then be understood, sort of thing. So
Yeah, I think it's why the to have a structure of um, development and review meetings is important because if you put these things, but the diary controls the accountant's day. So if you put these things in the diary and put them in the diary for the year ahead, then A, you know they're going to happen, but B, it's dedicated time. You can concentrate on the conversation, you can listen properly,
mm.
you can digest it. It's invaluable time. And okay, so it's not a chargeable hour to a client, but it just makes such a difference to the effectiveness of the operation where people are having those sorts of conversations in a properly focused environment.
Mm. Just something you said there, and it's not specifically about managing the team, but although you could put the question out there, is to create time in the environment that doesn't need to be billed, is to make sure that you're billing correctly to your clients. So that it caters for all, it's starting to cater for the time when you're not working on
Mm.
client. And I'm just saying that as an aside because that if you're not sure how to go about that, you can ask some of these youngsters coming through because they'll have a whole raft of different suggestions that you possibly wouldn't have gone to because you're living in a reality tunnel of, of your creation, but also the profession and society and blah, blah, blah. So it's not all yours, but yeah, you could ask that question because, it is about balancing things a little bit more. And I bet they come up with some great ideas, some of which you'll just bin because they will be just a bit too wild and wacky to start with. But there'll be a really good one in there, and you've just got to pick through that.
Yeah, I mean, I love team days. We do a lot of team days. I love team days that I'm constantly blown away by the creativity and the engagement that they create. And as you say, um, occasionally you get the occasional, the wacky idea. Where I remember the team day we did maybe 2 years ago now, and this particular firm they got a cellar, and in the cellar was it was where the old files were stored and all the rest of it, and we got the team to break into small groups and talk about that, what they could do going forward
Mm.
to change the firm and move it forward. And one of the younger people came in with a suggestion that everybody over the age of 35 needed to be confined to the cellar. Which, to myself in the room and to the partner in the room, both of whom were considerably over that age, they were saying, "Yeah, we'll just put some nice things, nice furniture down there for you and all that shit, but we want this to be a young person's firm." I thought, okay, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, yeah, that is interesting. And yeah, in some ways, that would be great because all you do is overseers. And you could be having your TV
Mm.
on, or you could be reading a book or learning the latest something else and developing yourself, but you'd still be in the business. Boy, they could be paying for you. Hey,
Yeah, well, I mean, interesting enough, this is a partner who since then has worked 3 days a week. Okay,
awesome.
because it very naturally led on to the conversation about, okay, how would you guys step up then? How would we do that?
Yeah.
If you're going to take us out of the equation, how do you then? And so you can always, there's always a positive tack to this. Yeah, you can always, you can just don't be such an idiot. But actually, no, let's explore that conversation. Let's see where let's talk about some of the. So how would you replace the time that the director does? How would you, what would you do in terms of the progression of the firm going forward? Some really good stuff came out of it. Director works 3 days a week. Thank you very much.
Okay, that sounds perfect. So it just goes to show never close anybody down because you just never know,
Absolutely.
do you? Yes, I think that's been very powerful. I certainly, when I think about my own team days, maybe I was not as open as I could be, but then I was a different person. And it's only through, um, being more open, being understanding of others and where they're coming from, can you really make the difference that you want to? Because they will know. And very often the changes are needed at a grassroots level.
Mm, absolutely.
Not at a managerial level, because they've sort of lost touch with not just what's happening there, bearing in mind all the tech that's going on. And obviously, we've been through some really challenging times over the last 10 years, what with the financial banking crisis back in 10, or might be a bit more than 10 years. But then you've got Brexit, and then you've had COVID, and then a supposed recession. People have had to work even harder to just stand still. And I think we need new ideas wherever they may come from.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So you mentioned your team days. So is there anything coming up that you need to let anybody know about?
Well, we generally will do them. I mean, we can do them with any team anytime. Yeah, we just need a director to get in touch and say, can we do this?
Okay.
It is very much my happy place, as I said last week to a team we're working with. But it encapsulates everything we've been talking about because you're in a space where all you're doing is talking and listening and engaging everybody. They're done in such a way that everyone will engage. And you can light some terrific fires by doing these things, getting people out of the office, just getting them into a different sort of environment, where they
Mm,
can think a bit differently. It's about changing perceptions on all sides of the fence. Yeah, that's fundamentally how I see team days. It's getting the directors to see their team differently, team to see directors differently, and everyone to see their firm in maybe a different light. They
mm.
can be they're always terrific days, very positive days.
I must admit, I've done a few team building days in my time, but the first one I ever did had these little, they were like tanks, but just at the bottom, because the way you steered them was not the way you want to steer a car. And we were all over the place with these things, but what great fun. Then there was archery, and I found I had a bit of a skill for that, and something else. But there was also a presentation in the morning. So we did in the morning, it was all work because then they could set it off at the time against tax. And then obviously in the afternoon, all these games. And then the evenings were just invariably a good meal and then drinking.
Yeah,
Even then, I wasn't a big drinker, but enough to get myself a little pickled. Yeah, that was not good.
it's sometimes we'll do an entire just quite a structured team days. Often we'll do what you just described there, where we'll split the days. So we'll do some sort of considered stuff in the morning, something a little bit more out there or adventurous. We've done outward bound stuff, we've done cookery, we've done all sorts just to get the team working together in different ways. Yeah,
I think,
it's quite it's there's lots of different ways that you can approach it, but it just shows the team as well that the firm are prepared to think a bit differently. Yeah, and that is important for people with so much change going on. Sometimes you have to provide physical evidence of change. And not just that we've got a new system in place, but actually we're thinking differently, we're behaving differently. The change is as much about, we don't, I don't think we highlight enough the human side of change.
no. And the humans in the business as well, obviously, because I'll be honest with you, after that weekend, I still couldn't tell you who the bosses were. were probably the most outrageous, probably, but I just still don't know who they were. So interesting, isn't it? So, oh well, that's brilliant. So just for those who are listening, obviously team building days, very valuable for you and your team. Richard's your man. And thank you so much, Richard. It's been really interesting as always. And I'm looking forward to our next episode, which is all about dealing with stress, isn't it? So we'll have a look and see what we're doing there.
Yeah, big topic.
Thank you. Any questions, please do let us know, or any topics. We're open to topics. So anything you particularly want us to cover, that would be fabulous. Thank you so much.
Bye.